Morning, everybody. So, one of the things that I've been trying to do is educate, educate everyone that is thinking about filing for the disability benefits. So, today let's talk about claimants that are over the age of 50. Well, if you're over the age of 50, congratulations. For the first time in your first time since turning 50, you're actually getting a little bit of a break. Social Security rules actually favor claimants over the age of 50. Now, of course, that does not mean that you're going to be found disabled, but what it does mean is it increases your chances or improves your chances of being having your benefits awarded to you. Okay, so one of the things that I really wanted to discuss with you guys is it's called the Medical Vocational Guidelines. And the medical vocational guidelines are very important actually because they're rules that Social Security has set up to determine whether or not somebody is disabled. So let's take two claimants. Start off with and give you some examples. Okay, well the first example is let's take a 51-year-old woman that has worked as a cook at a medium exertion level. Okay, that a cook would be at the medium exertion level. Standing, she is standing a lot, almost the entire time, lifting heavy pots, things of that nature. Okay, so that would probably be classified as medium work. And let's say she's got an 11th grade education, and let's just say she had a heart attack and she has some really some severe things going on with her heart. Okay. So what we would do if that claimant walked into my office, I would immediately turn to the medical vocational guidelines. Now they're also called the grids. If you're over the age of 50 and you're needing to file for disability benefits, you need to Google it or look it up on the internet and study it because it's really important. Now, let's take our 51-year-old woman. Okay, she has a limited education. Her education is very important in this determination. She has a limited education, and so because she did not finish high school, she has a severe impairment. We know that, and uh, does she have transferable work skills? That's the other thing that's really important. Is the work that she's done in the past, will it transfer to sedentary work? Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is show whether or not she can do sedentary work even despite her severe heart condition. And if she can do sedentary work, she may or may not be found disabled. We'll see as we go through on the medical vocational guidelines. So we take the 51-year-old woman. We know that she has a limited education again. And does it really comes down to is her work skills transferable to sedentary work because that's all she's going to be able to do. At one time, she was doing medium exertional work. At this time now, she's probably likely only going to be classified as being able to do sedentary work. Well, do her work skills transfer? Well, the answer is likely no. That the work she did as a cook, those skills that she acquired are not going to transfer down to sedentary work. And the rules would state then that she is disabled. Now let's change the facts. 51-year-old woman, she has a college education, but she got it in, say, 85. But she worked as a mid-level manager for a healthcare company. And she had a severe heart attack. She has congestive heart failure, for example. Can she or can she not then transfer to sedentary work? Uh, can she not continue to still do sedentary work because it was likely she was doing sedentary work before? Well, the answer to that is that yeah, probably so. Uh, her even though her education, okay, we go back to her education, even though it's above a high school level, it's high school level or more, it's above there. So it's in the 85. It's probably not going to transfer into direct skilled work, but can she still do unskilled work? And I know that sucks, but that's the way the rules are set up. So you're not disabled just because you can't go and be a mid-level manager someplace else. I mean, that you're not disabled because you can still go and do other types of sedentary, unskilled work. Okay, so are work skills transferable? Well, yeah. She has leadership skills. She has organizational skills. She has all these different intangible skills that can be transferred to other work. And so she's likely not going to be found disabled. She's going to be found not disabled, and she likely will not win her benefits. Now, the only way that, of course, that she could win them is she would show that, given her severe condition, that she's unable to even do sedentary work. Okay, so just because you're 51 and if you just so happen to have congestive heart failure, your ejection fraction rate may be so low that you can't even can't even hold down a job for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So just because the medical vocational guidelines there say you're not disabled, you still may be disabled. And we'll get back to that in a minute because you're not even fitting under the exertional level. So you can still be found disabled. But if you can do sedentary work, then you're not going to be disabled. Okay, let's take the next guy, the next person. Let's say it's another woman. This time she's 62 and she got an associate's degree in 85 instead. Okay, but she's worked medium jobs her whole life. Also, she's worked medium jobs also, even light jobs. Let's say she's worked as light jobs, okay? And she was a home health care aide. A lot of people turn to that job when they can't do anything else because you can sit most of the day and help people do some light house cleaning, things like that. Um, and a lot of people do that because it's unskilled work. It pays $10 or more an hour, and you can kind of survive on that when you can't do anything else. All right, so we go back. We look at her age. Age is real important here because she's over the age of 60. It is a lot more important than being 51. So she's 62 years old, right? That greatly gives her a chance. That greatly increases her chance of being found disabled. Okay, now let's look at her education. What's her education? Well, her education is that she's high school graduate or more. But again, it doesn't provide for access into direct work, direct skilled work. Look, if you are one of those individuals that went back to school when you were 50 and you got a new degree, there could be some argument that depending on your degree, you could go back into skilled work. Now let's look at those transferable work skills. What did we say she did? She was a home health aide. That's right. And so and in fact, let's add even one more to it. She's still working. She's still working as a home health aide, but she's only working part time and she's making under, I hate to throw this at you, what's called substantial gainful activity levels. She's making $400 a month at it. Okay. So we're not going to go into SGA, substantial gainful activity levels. I don't want to fry your brain here, but let's just say she's still working. All right, we look at the medical vocational guidelines. She's in her hearing. The judge has heard everything that's wrong with her, and the judge says, you're still disabled. You're disabled no matter what, because when we look at the medical vocational guidelines, your age is 62. You don't have education that transfers in directly into skilled work, and you don't have any transferable work skills. So you're going to do what's called, you're going to grid out. You're going to grid out right then and there. And the medical vocational guidelines are also called grids. And everybody has nomenclature for their own industry. Well, in the Social Security disability industry, gridding out or the grids are referring to the medical vocational guidelines. Okay, so the judge is going to say, well, you grid out under sedentary work. You grid out under sedentary work. As a matter of fact, we don't even have to look at a light exertional level because it doesn't even matter because you grid out at sedentary. Okay, so let's go back to where that first claimant, actually the second claimant that we changed the first claimant we changed the scenario on being our second claimant, and we said, oh no, man, she may still be found not disabled. She's got a heart condition, congestive heart failure, etc. and her ejection fraction rate is less than 20%. Okay, so barely any part on her body is really working, right? But not barely any part of her heart is working. Okay, so there are two scenarios in which the medical vocational, the grids, the medical vocational guidelines, the grids do not apply. Well, they don't apply if you don't fit within the exertion level that they're trying to determine whether or not you're disabled. So let's say if you fall between sedentary work and light work, or light work and medium work, the medical vocational, well, not even really light and medium, because if you can do one or the other, you can do sedentary, but really where you fall between sedentary and light work, okay? And you can't do light, and it's you can do a little bit more than sedentary, but you may have other conditions, okay? So other mental impairments that may also limit you. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But what matters is if you don't fit within that exertional level, okay, then the medical vocational guidelines are just going to be used as a guideline. They're not going to direct whether or not you're disabled or not disabled. So, so we're talking about that woman that had the congestive heart failure. She really can't even do sedentary work. So the guy, they're just used as a guideline, and they're not really determined. They're not going to make a determination whether or not she's disabled or not. Okay, but if the judge wants to use it and shoehorn you in there, then because of your transferable work skills and the fact that you were working in management, it's probably going to kill your ability to get disability benefits, and you're going to have to go and find some type of sedentary, even unskilled labor. Okay. The other time the medical vocational guidelines don't apply is when you have mental impairments. And so let's talk about mental impairments: bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, severe anxiety, PTSD, schizoaffective disorders, things like that. Okay, those are not going to allow the medical vocational guidelines to determine whether or not you're disabled, because simply those are measuring physical exertion levels and not mental exertion levels, or the capability to mentally exert yourself uh, during a normal work day. All right. So what are those kind of conditions? And by the way, if you're watching this and you think you have ADHD, well, number one, so does everybody. And if you're an adult, go get some medication, because it's likely the medication is going to be able to control it, and you're not going to win disability benefits. Okay. Social Security is seen it too many times, and they're extremely skeptical of an adult claiming ADHD and unable to work. All right. So, what are their mental disorders that the medical vocational guidelines can't dictate whether or not you're disabled? They only uses a framework, really. If you've got some physical exertion levels as well, what are the well, and still can be used as a guideline for mental disorders. But what kind of restrictions do you have with your mental disorders that keep you from being able to work? Well, let's talk about some of those. That you're unable to even do simple tasks. You can't follow simple instructions, either written or oral, given to you. Any unskilled job that the Social Security Administration figures that you're able to do and you're not entitled to benefits is likely going to be able you're going to be able to follow very simple 1 and 2 sentence instructions. An unskilled labor like that was going to have those. So go do this. When you get done with that, go do that. Um, so if you're unable to even follow simple instructions, written or spoken, then that greatly reduces the amount of jobs in the national economy you're capable of doing. All right, let's say you're bipolar, or you have PTSD. You can't work around the public. There's a lot of people, for women, for example, that have been sexually assaulted. They can't work around strange men or around the general public because of PTSD from their condition. So that would limit the amount of jobs that you could do, because you'd have to work in isolation. You're bipolar, you can't get along with your boss or your coworkers. Excuse me. those are the kind of limitations that are going to further restrict the number of jobs in the national economy you're capable of performing. Um, what else? Uh, okay, if you go through long periods of decompensation, what is decompensation? Decompensation is where your condition comes on and it just puts you out of service for 2 weeks at a time, and that happens twice a year. Well, the in all actuality, the rules are changing in regards to periods of decompensation, but for right now, they're still in effect. And so no job is going to tolerate you just being out of commission for 2 weeks at a time, twice a year. You're going to get fired. And so that would further restrict the amount of jobs that you were capable of doing. Here's another one. Just because of what your mental condition is doing to you, you lack concentration, so you're off task 10% or more. Now, while that is taken into consideration. This is for another segment. The DOT, the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, doesn't take that into consideration. But believe me, don't let that confuse you right now. But you're off task due to your mental condition for 10% or more. Um, what are some other things? You have to take unscheduled breaks throughout the day. So instead of just taking a 15-minute break in the morning, 15-minute break in the afternoon, and a lunch break during the day, you're having to take, 5, 10 minutes here, 5, 10 minutes here, here and there. And unskilled work, you need to be a worker bee for most unskilled positions. So it's not going to tolerate it. It's again going to put you off task. Okay. So look, well, here's the moral of the story. If you're over the age of 50, go online, look at the medical vocational guidelines, find it just for sedentary work, okay? Evaluate your symptoms. If you have just physical limitations, then look and see if you can just do sedentary work, 6 to 8 hours a day. Stand or walk for 2 hours a day. You're lifting no more than 10 pounds, and you're frequently lifting things like files, binders, maybe a laptop, something like that. And look at that and see. Look at your education level and look what you've been doing for the past 15 years. That is called the relevant work period. Look and see what you've been doing for the last 15 years. And if you have if you have transferable work skills, leadership, organizational skills, there's a million different kind of skills that could actually be transferred into sedentary work. And so you might want to Google transitional work skills as well. See if you have those skills. And if you don't, then evaluate whether or not, look at the whole picture. Look at age, education, transferable work skills, and look and see if you can transfer into that. Take care.